Last week, I talked about the challenge of loving evil people. And in that conversation, we looked at how much God loved us even when we committed tremendous evil against him. This brings up a different issue, and it goes something like this. Maybe you've seen someone on TikTok or whatever complaining about God, going like, "Hey fam, Christianity is whack. You're telling me that God makes himself out to be this high and mighty guy in the sky who makes all these demands on people, but of course people aren't perfect, and so God says, well, you sinned against me, you deserve death, but then, oh my gosh, he swoops down and dies on the cross and saves the day? What's up with that?" It's like we imagine this egotistical God sitting on a cloud somewhere pondering to himself, how can I make humanity worship me? Oh, I know, I'll tell them that they have sinned and deserve death, but then I'll save them from that and they'll adore me. You might think of that guy Syndrome from The Incredibles, the first one, right? Where his evil plan is to create a giant robot to wreak havoc on a city, and then when all hope seems lost, he will fly in, destroy the robot, and everyone will call him a hero. Of course, Syndrome is not a hero, and if that is the same story for God, then God is not a hero either. The response that I would offer as a Christian is simply that this is not God's story. It's just not. Like, my imaginary critic on TikTok is using details from God's story, but they're using those details to construct a meta-narrative of God craving after worship and inventing a clever scheme to make himself look good, which is completely unbiblical. As such, it is not a Christian view of God, and so it fails to challenge the Christian view of God. For one, the same text which informs us about salvation is also crystal clear that God is good. No Christian view includes the former without the latter. Second, the Bible also makes clear that God does not need us. He does not need praise or affirmation or recognition to feel good about himself. Third, God's law, which he delivered to humanity, was not designed to be impossible. It was actually designed to bring life. That was the purpose. Paul makes that clear. But he also is clear that because of sin, the law ended up revealing sin in people. Okay? Fourth, that God judges people for their sin is not something he simply chose to do. It is connected to the fact that God is holy and just. These are fixed attributes of God's nature. And then fifth, we cannot forget that when God came to us in the person of Jesus, he became fully human. He felt real suffering. He felt real pain. He felt those nails on the cross as any human would. Prior to his execution, we see Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, deeply anguished over what he was about to endure. None of this lines up with the story of Syndrome. None of this leads us to conclude that it's a big scheme from God to generate worship for him. Obviously, God's salvation leads people to worship him, but it's not because God was self-centered and scheming. It's because we really did freely choose to rebel against God, because we really did deserve death, because God really is forgiving, and because God really did demonstrate real love when he suffered and died on the cross for us. All of this took place because of how things work in regard to blood and sacrifice and atonement and so forth. We don't have access to why these big theological words work the way they do, but however we understand it, we cannot understand it as an invention of God to make himself look good. So again, there is simply no version of Christianity that views God as an egotistical being who created the problem so that he could solve it. I would never argue for that or ask you to believe in a God like that. In fact, there is no version of Christianity in which God is not good, because God's goodness is just as essential to the Christian message as the cross itself. Next week, did Jesus lie about his second coming? Was he mistaken? You have these verses where Jesus talks about the coming of the Son of Man and how this generation will not pass until they see him. Well, his generation was a long time ago, and I don't like that slippery interpretation that he was speaking to some other generation when he was speaking to them, to people. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.